With you by my side, who would dare try to overthrow me? How about me?
All right, y'all. We are back again for another oversimplified. Some people have been wanting me to finish the series, although the first part, my mic was bad, so... yeah, the first part, it was a good reaction, but my mic was bad, man. But I'm gonna finish all this series regardless. Let's continue. So, oversimplify Russian Civil War Part 2.
One Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary went for a drive with the top down in Sarajevo. One thing leads to another, and suddenly Russia found itself at war with half of Europe. A wave of patriotism swept through Russia. Capital was renamed to Petrograd because St. Petersburg sounded a bit too German. Even revolutionaries were getting on board. To them, World War I was a big stinky imperialist war, but they didn't want their big stinky imperialist replaced by a foreign one. So pretty much everyone wanted Russia to win. I hope
Oh my god. I feel like that's how everyone viewed World War I to some sense. Also, oversimplified. Why are you using the Russian Federation flag? What the heck? This is not the Russian Empire flag.
Russia loses? Jeez, read the room, Lenin. Lenin hoped Russia would lose because that would help him overthrow the Tsar. As long as he did that, who cares if Germany blows up half the country? And blow up half the country, they did. An inefficient Tsarist government meant there were shortages of just about everything you need to fight a war. And if losing a teensy-weensy war with Japan upset the people, losing a giant Wyatt war like this was much worse. Soldiers were deserting, the economy was imploding, and in no time...
Freaking hell, man. Oh, wait a minute. Alright.
Russia was starving. The peasants were getting more peasanty. The workers were getting more workery. All the while...
Workery, peasanty...
We need to win this war.
Germany, what?
Military mind to step in and take control. You're right. How about General Hickenlooper? How about me? You can't run the war. Who'll be in charge of the country while you're gone? Obviously, my German wife and a homeless wizard. Duh. Nicholas declared him.
Bro, dude, Rasputin, honestly, he got I don't know. I have mixed feelings about him. Some stuff about him might be true. But I feel like he was a bit too much of a scapegoat. Like, the way how he was treated was like a way too much of a scapegoat. Like, honestly, he wasn't really responsible for all the chaos, what people was eventually thinking of him. And as for Nicholas being in charge, it's funny how the Kaiser was basically replaced by Ludendorff and Hindenburg. And both of them became de facto dictators of Germany, but Nicholas decided to command on the front line. It's very interesting. Let's continue.
Commander-in-chief and went to the front lines, leaving his German wife in charge while they were fighting the Germans. It wasn't a good look.
Yeah, that's a very bad look.
So close to Rasputin, people believed that he was actually calling the shots and secretly destroying Russia, and maybe even boinking her. An even worser look. At this point, a bunch...
Bro, I always wondered, is that actually true? I heard that Rasputin was doing it, but is there actually evidence? I've never seen evidence. I've only heard people say it, but I've never really heard evidence about that.
The rebels just couldn't take it anymore. Rasputin is destroying the country. We have to break his magic spell over the Tsar. But how? He's magic.
Enlisted is the
Dude. Very cool. Hey, it's Rasputin. The sexy party is running a little late, but in the meantime, why don't you try one of these totally not poisoned cakes? Dude, why'd you say it like that? He's totally gonna know they're poisoned now. Shut up. I said they're not poisoned. Dude, he just ate so much poison. How is he still alive? It must be the magic. Go with plan B.
Yo, bro, Rasputin, yo. This man had to have had some Wizard of Oz type of trick. Even now, I even wonder, how in the world did this guy even survive that poison? Did they not put the poison in properly, or what? Or was this immune? Because fun fact, your immune system can actually be resistant to poison. Just like how, when you get bacteria, you get sick, your immune system becomes resistant. Same thing with poison. If you take a little bit of dose of poison, as long as it doesn't kill you, your immune system will become resistant to said poison, / venom. But yo, bro, Rasputin was honestly mysterious. He's like the definition of mysterious. And the way how he like died is extremely mysterious.
Is he dead? See, Boris? I told you he was the Antichrist,
and you
didn't believe. Can you shut up for 1 minute and help me roll him up? Are you sure he's dead? I don't know, but I'm supposed to be hosting a charity auction right now. Can we get this over with? Okay, now he's dead. The murder of Rasputin, just like his life.
I don't think he died when he got shot either. I think he died when they finally put him in the frozen river, right? But yeah, dude, if that is true, bro, this is some resilience that I've ever like learned of, like ever in history. Breaking hell.
He's shrouded in mystery and speculation.
Yeah.
He probably didn't really die like that, but he also probably didn't really heal people. He probably didn't influence the Tsar as much as people thought. He probably wasn't secretly destroying the country.
I am glad that Oversimplified is like highlighting this, because a lot of people really need to hear that. Let's continue.
He definitely did do, even in his death, was ruin the Tsar's reputation. Russia's autocracy looked more outdated than ever, and the Russian people were taking notice. Come on, men. Remember what we're fighting for.
Well, they say that Russia's autocracy was more outdated than ever, yet Russia is still an autocracy somewhat today, ruled by oligarchs.
Yeah, no, we're out. World War I left Russia broke, hungry, and exhausted. And with Nicholas acting as commander-in-chief, he was getting even more blame for this.
Yeah, that's not...
was on the brink of revolution.
Why would Nicholas even want to be the commander?
Couldn't afford for 3 years. They were running out of many things, most worryingly, food. On International Women's Day, 1917, thousands of hungry women in Petrograd were so sick of being hungry that they took to the streets. And it turns out it's not just women who experience hunger, but men too. So the next day they joined in as well. Gatherings on the streets were forbidden, but I'm not sure how you'd arrest 250,000 people. The crowds demanded an end to the...
Wait, what? 250,000 people? That's almost the entire population of my home country. Bro, when I left my home country, Barbados, that was literally the population. 250,000 people. Holy crap. That is a lot of people. That is a lot more people than you think it is, guys. Trust me. 250,000 people is a lot of people.
Into food rationing, and even an end to the Tsar's autocracy. Now, normally the troops would deal with this kind of thing. But as it turns out, soldiers get hungry too. And they were also tired of having to kill their fellow Russians so much.
Interesting how this guy looks like a Prussian. Why is that? Why does he have like a Prussian like uniform drip on? I think Germany had like some influence on Russia or something like that. I could be wrong. Especially the I don't know. Why does he look like Prussian? Someone explain that to me.
So
but is there a reason for that?
Mutinied in the capital, and they joined the crowd as well, trashing symbols of the Tsar and his autocratic regime. Things were escalating very quickly. Liberal politicians watching the riots in the streets had long been dissatisfied with the Tsar, since he would shut their parliament down anytime they did something he didn't like. They believed the only way to bring stability back to the streets was for Nicholas II to abdicate. The riots continued. The police fired on soldiers. Soldiers fired on soldiers. The workers re-established the Petrograd Soviet. Politicians began arresting the Tsar's ministers. He may have been an autocrat, but he just lost complete control of his capital city. Talk about
anarchy. That's literally called anarchy.
Troops have turned against us. The people have taken over the city. They've even cut my phone line. Hello? Hello? The phones are down. Things must be bad. I'd better go back there. Nicholas hopped on the next train back to Petrograd, but he never made it to the city. His train was met by military generals and other politicians. What's going on? Nicholas, look man, we need to talk. It's not you, it's us. Who am I kidding? No, it's definitely you. During the whole crisis in Petrograd, the liberals convinced the generals that if Nicholas abdicated, the people would calm down, and the generals were on board. They didn't have time to quell the chaos, because don't forget, they were still losing a No longer on his side, Nicholas had no choice but to step down.
Like I said, bro, once your military turns against you, you lose all your power.
Throughout his entire reign, he had done everything he could to keep all the power for himself. And in the end, that's exactly what left him with none. But then there was a big question. Who would replace Nicholas? Well, his son Alexei was next in line. Hey buddy, Daddy couldn't handle the complex socioeconomic problems of a giant multinational, multi-ethnic empire that's engaged in total war with all of Europe. You think you could give it a shot? Alexei just wasn't ready to be Tsar. Nicholas did have a brother, but given the state of the empire, he wasn't keen either. And so, 300 years of Romanov rule in Russia just kind of came to an end.
Wow.
The 1905 revolution hadn't changed much, but this new revolution had left Russia without a Tsar. And still, before the year was over, there would be one more revolution left to come. Nicholas's failure as commander of the armed forces was the final straw that broke the camel's back. Do you think maybe you could have done any better? Well, guess.
Whoa, is this gonna be a sponsor? Also, me personally, oh, this is a sponsor. I'm poor. Go check out my Patreon. Go support me, guys. I'm in a crisis right now. So, go support me, please. I can use it.
It's better outside with
Yes, Oh yeah. Hungry woman, absolute chaos, and the end of the Tsar. Oh, hey guys, says here there's been a revolution, and the reign of the Tsars has ended. Oh, come on, I missed another one? Why am I even in this video? Well, it's not like you could have done anything. As long as there's a world war, you can't get back to Russia. Who wants to start a revolution? Dang it! Despite getting rid of Nick, Russia was still at war with half of Europe. The Germans, however, had an idea. They thought that if they helped Lenin get back, he would cause trouble for the new Russian government. So they put him on a train, destination, Petrograd. It was a long journey, and while Lenin was cooped up in his train, things in Russia were changing.
Wait, how in the world was a train all the way from Switzerland able to get all the way to Petrograd? Because they would have to go through the front lines, right? Slash contact line. So, how is that possible? What, like, isn't that impossible? Because, like, you gotta, like, go through the, what? Like, you're passing through enemy territory, and they're just letting the train go through enemy territory? Am I missing something here? Okay.
Workers were taking control of factories. Soldiers were socking it to their mean old officers. Without a Tsar,
I still don't understand why they let Prussian.
And someone needed to fill it.
Why do they let Prussian?
Charge, and they set up the Provisional Government. The workers, however, had already begun establishing local Soviets, largely controlled by the social revolutionaries and the Mensheviks. And since neither felt like they had the power to oust the other, Russia ended up in a classic dual power conundrum. The two coexisted, with the Provisional Government becoming the official government, and the elected Soviets issuing orders to the workers and soldiers. This power balance was delicate, and all it would take is one bold revolutionary to come along.
Honestly, it should have stayed like that. It probably should have stayed like that.
Give everyone a big brain to beat down. Oh boy, Lenin's coming home. I can't wait for him to see all the great things we've accomplished, and I'm going to show him my fan art. Oh look, here he comes now. Shut up, shut up! You all suck! The Provisional Government sucks, the Soviet sucks, even your fan art sucks! Why did he have to be so mean? In case you couldn't tell, Lenin wasn't a fan of everything that had been happening. In his April theses, he called the Provisional Government and the Soviets a bunch of big bourgeois bozos. And he kinda had a point. There was still a lot for the Russian people to be mad about. The Provisional Government hadn't got Russia out of the war, the people were still hungry, and the peasants were still hoping to get more.
Bro, this is what I was saying. I feel like the Tsar, like, Rasputin and the Tsar, I feel like they had, like, too much blame. I mean, the Tsar should have, like, he should have given out some of his power a bit, but still, I still feel like he got a bit too much blame about that, honestly.
More land. Meanwhile, the Soviets hadn't done much to change things either. But even though they weren't perfect, a lot of people did like what the new government had been doing. There was progress. The secret police were disbanded, the death penalty abolished. They even planned to hold elections, meaning for the first time ever, the Russian people could choose their own government. To many, Lenin seemed like some out-of-touch weirdo. If Lenin wanted to go from whiny irrelevant zero to a hunky communist hero, he'd need to shake things up a bit. So he and the Bolsheviks came up with a hot new slogan that promised to give the people what the Provisional Government wouldn't. Peace. Don't like war? We'll end it. Land. You want land? We'll give it to you. Bread. Hungry? Scooby-Dooby-Doo. Lenin also called for all power to the Soviets, which meant getting rid of the...
I never really understood that. Like, I get the people wanted the war to end, but when you're, like, on the losing side of said war, right? You know, you're gonna have bad demands on you. Like, I get that they want it to end, but would it really be any better if you, like, lost? right now. You know what I mean?
Provisional government, and having the Soviets run the place. A communist dream. The people liked these slogans, and bit by bit, the Bolsheviks became more popular. Some Mensheviks even began switching sides. But even though the people thought Lenin's slogans rocked, as long as the Provisional Government didn't mess up, they'd continue to support it. So let's check in on the Provisional Government.
Chaos.
Provisional Government.
Chaos.
A big mess. The Provisional Government lasted for just 9 months, but those 9 months were chaos. The people wanted Russia out of World War I, but Minister of War Alexander Kerensky thought instead of doing that, why not do the exact opposite? If the people saw more Russian...
Alexander Kerensky is literally, arguably, the reason why the Soviet Union formed. That guy was so hated that by the time the Bolsheviks launched their revolution, nobody cared to defend him, and the soldiers that could have defended him, like, there were literally orders for soldiers to come to Petrograd / St. Petersburg / Leningrad to go and defend him, and they just didn't. Like, a lot of people don't talk about Alexander Kerensky, but that guy was hated to the teeth.
Victories. They'd have to support the new government, and that went just about as well as you might expect. These heavy defeats worsened the Russian economy and made the hungry people hungrier. And by now, I think you know what comes next.
Revolution. Well, right, yeah.
More violence. It was like the Tsar had never abdicated. Tens of thousands of armed workers took to the streets during some of the worst violence Petrograd had seen yet. And in response, Kerensky called in the troops, who opened fire on the demonstrators. For now, Lenin and other Bolshevik leaders wanted to distance themselves from the violence, but the crowds marched under Bolshevik slogans, and as a result, Kerensky, now the prime minister, took the opportunity to stamp down on the Bolsheviks. Their leaders were arrested. Lenin was accused of being a German agent, and he was forced to flee to Finland in disguise. This sucks! Now I'll never get to have my revolution! Why are you wearing a dress? It's a disguise, idiot! And it makes me feel pretty. Kerensky had successfully dealt with the violence, but he just couldn't catch a break. This increasing support for more extreme forms of socialism, along with the poor handling of the war, alarmed traditional liberals and bougie business boys. To appease them, Kerensky decided to be commander of the armed forces. Someone who hated the revolution, loved the death penalty, and was devoutly anti-socialist. General Kornilov. Hey man, thanks for the promotion. That was real sweet.
I've heard of this guy.
Of course, with you by my side, who would dare try to overthrow me? How about me? I did not see this coming. Unfortunately for Kerensky, Kornilov hated the liberal and socialist reforms of the new government, particularly the dumb socialist soldiers' committees. The army was no place for undisciplined left-wing snowflakes. Fearing a Bolshevik...
I agree. Bro, I 100,000% agree. Like... the army is no place for that.
Kornilov ordered his men towards Petrograd to oust the Soviet and take over. Kerensky freaked out, and he needed help. Since he knew Trotsky was finger-licking good at organizing, he and other Bolshevik leaders were released, and they...
Oh my gosh, Trotsky does look like Colonel Sanders. Oh my gosh. That's a weird way to point that out, oversimplified.
The defense of Petrograd. Kornilov had the power of soldiers, but the Soviet had the power of workers. And they did what workers do best. Railroad workers diverted Kornilov's men away. Telegraph workers messed with his communications. They even infiltrated his forces and encouraged the demoralized men to desert. They were also armed en masse, but in the end, no fighting was necessary because
Bro, how did these people even get all these weapons? I never understood that.
Kornilov's coup just fell apart, and Kornilov was sent straight to prison. Everything was coming up Kerensky. Hey, thanks for the help, boys. Couldn't have done it without you. Now that there's no longer any threat, how about you, return all those guns I gave you? No.
Of course not.
The better things.
No, in order to kill a rat, Kerensky had just given a gun to a bear. A Bolshevik bear. The whole affair was a huge propaganda win for them.
A Bolshevik bear.
And their popularity skyrocketed.
Wait, no, Bolshevik means majority or big? I know Bolshevik is the same word as Bolshoi. So, he gave it to a big bear, quite literally a big bear, when you really actually think about it, metaphorically.
They found themselves elected to the Petrograd Moscow Soviets, with Trotsky even becoming chairman in Petrograd. They were now in a very powerful position, almost powerful enough for Lenin to return home from Finland and finally stage his long-awaited communist revolution. The Bolsheviks began planning their takeover of the Russian government. Some got cold feet and began arguing against Lenin's armed revolution in favor of a more peaceful approach, and they even wrote newspaper articles about it, which kind of gave the whole scheme away. The Bolsheviks are planning an armed revolution? I did not see this coming. Kerensky began arresting Bolsheviks, and as a result, Lenin and the boys felt they had no choice but to commence the revolution right now. Lenin was back in Petrograd, but was still in hiding, so Trotsky got the ball rolling, using his position as Soviet chairman to organize the Bolshevik militias. Now, if you were to ask Soviet artists,
It so happened, what happened to Trotsky? Bro, Trotsky did so much for the Soviet Union, and what happened to him in the end? Oh my gosh, dude, what happened to him in the end is wild to me, bro. Bro, what if Trotsky was the leader of the Soviet Union? I feel like if, I feel like if Trotsky was the leader of the Soviet Union, I feel like the Soviet Union would have been a lot better. Because Trotsky, I mean, Stalin somewhat knew what he was doing, I guess. But Trotsky seemed like he knew more than Stalin overall, in my personal opinion.
the revolution went something like this. As much as they would like you to think it was a glorious, violent, heroic takeover, the truth seems to be a little more underwhelming. The Bolsheviks just kind of walked into key buildings in the city and took control. Bolshevik supporting sailors even brought in a huge battleship, but there wasn't really any fighting. Nobody really tried to stop them. In just one day, they took control of the city.
Like I said, Alexander Kerensky was so hated that, like, when people, guys, the funny part about this is that they knew the Bolsheviks were coming. There were literally orders of troops to go to Petrograd. But no one wanted Kerensky there. Everyone would just rather the Bolsheviks there. It wasn't until the Bolsheviks came to power that everyone was like, okay, now we don't like these guys. And then boom, Russian Civil War.
Next, Kerensky just managed to escape before the Bolsheviks surrounded the Winter Palace, placing the Provisional Government under siege inside. Is it safe to come out yet? I think so. Fear my revolutionary might. Give me that. That night, Lenin came out of hiding to play a bigger role in the revolution, with him back at the helm. They had one more job to do, storm the Winter Palace and arrest the Provisional Government. And here comes the final showdown. The palace was defended by a force known as the Battalion of Death, who immediately gave up. And just like that, Lenin had...
Bro, imagine being called a Battalion of Death, and you just... Then again, like, whatever.
won.
So underwhelming, dude.
As far as violent, bloody revolutionary uprisings go, this wasn't really one of them. But Lenin was finally in charge of Russia. He had spent his whole life dreaming of this moment. He set up the First Council of People's Commissars, his own cabinet, with him in charge. This was it. His chance to finally make his communist utopia with equality and freedoms beyond compare. Hey Lenin, before we took power, they were planning on holding elections. Shall we go ahead with those? Of course. You can't have a communist utopia without high levels of political participation. The proletariat should be free to elect who it. What? The social revolutionaries won. We lost. Those don't count. Lenin claimed the elections were unfair, and the Constituent Assembly they created was counter-revolutionary.
Interesting. Ukrainian SR Party. Ukrainian SR Party. You know what I find hilarious? I see Ukrainians always like cry and moan that, oh, my Soviet Union did me so much bad. But like, there were a lot of communist Ukrainians as well. In fact, it was because Bolshevik Ukraine, Bolshevik Belarusia, and Bolshevik Russia, that the Soviet Union was first formed. Oh, it's funny always hearing Ukrainians cry about the Soviet Union, but I can sit here and argue that the Soviet Union kind of sort of benefited Ukraine rather than when it was like, you know, not the Soviet Union. But I'm going to do that for my Epic History TV Russian history video. Let's continue.
He presented the new assembly with a motion that basically said, sign here and give up your power. And when the assembly was like, no, Lenin said, see, they're disobeying me. Proof they're counter-revolutionary. Shut it down, boys. Moderate socialists and others weren't happy when Lenin had the assembly closed by force. And when campaigners began taking to the streets, they were...
My eye, bloody hell.
Setting up a communist utopia was looking suspicious like setting up a dictatorship. While he was implementing many of the communist policies...
The thing about Lenin, though, is that Lenin low-key, Lenin did have a dream, though. Lenin didn't really want to be a dictator of sorts, but he genuinely wanted a utopia. You know, like he even promoted like LGBTQ rights and whatnot. And I don't know. I feel like Lenin personally thought that it was just best for him to become a dictator. And that's kind of how I view what his name is, Vladimir Putin. Whatever. That bloody hell, dude. That is how I view Putin. I view Putin as he's not really a bad president of Russia, despite everything. I feel like he's keeping himself as president because he knows what's best for Russia. And under his reign, Russia has improved. You can't deny that. I see people hating on Putin, but under his reign, Russia has improved. And it's kind of sort of arguably improving more. I said arguably, but it is improving. So, I know that, but the whole NATO expansion thing, guys, there's some truth to that, okay? Guys, I'm sure, because I read my comments are filled with intellectual people, so I'm sure that you know that there is some truth to that. But yeah, I view Lenin and Putin same way. They thought that it was just best for them to stay at the helm. You know, it is what it is. Let's continue.
He was also refusing to work with other political parties and cracking down on opposition. Hey Lenin, are you setting up a dictatorship? I'll shoot you if you are. Of course not. What a crazy theory. Anyway, I'm pleased to announce I'm setting up a secret police force to repress and kill traitors. And by traitors, I of course mean anyone not loyal to me. Owie, 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 owie. The assassination attempt made on Lenin's life in August 1918 failed, but in response, the Bolsheviks ramped up their oppression. But while all of this chaos was erupting back home, Lenin and the boys were also distracted by another problem. They were still at war with the Germans, and they had promised to give the people peace. So Lenin made Trotsky Commissar for Foreign Affairs and sent him off to negotiate a peace deal with the Germans. The Germans offered Trotsky really harsh terms, you know, because they were winning the war. They demanded Russia
naturally
land, something that would be devastating.
Honestly, considering that this is Poland, most of this is literally Polish territory. That's not really Russian territory. What? The Kingdom of Poland was literally in a personal union of Russia, I think, right? Or was that abolished? Was that abolished? I think that was abolished, right? But still, this wasn't really Russian territory. I don't know why Russia, or not Russia, but at this point, the Bolsheviks who controlled the Russian Empire, because it was still the Russian Empire, which was still controlled by the Bolsheviks. So, you get my point. I don't get why they didn't just give it up.
No, it's not great, but I think we have to accept it. Are you insane? This will ruin us. Hey, Trotsky, you got a big brain. What do you think? How about no war, no peace? What's that, Mr. Trotsky, sir? It's simple. No war means we'll stop fighting the Germans, but no peace means we won't sign the peace treaty either. Then, when the Germans say we've just stopped fighting, they'll have to leave us alone or something. Trotsky!
What?
Genius! I could kiss you!
Wait, is that basically what the plan was? Oh gosh.
Do you want me to kiss you? Stop asking me that. Trotsky's no war, no peace plan was a huge success. Oh, wait, no, just kidding. It went exactly as you'd imagine. When the Germans saw the Russians had stopped fighting, they slammed 700,000 troops deep into Russian territory with no resistance. Now, the new peace treaty offered by the Germans was way worse, with Russia losing a huge amount of territory, population, and resources. The Bolsheviks had no choice but to accept, and Russia was humiliated. With Petrograd now in an exposed position, Lenin moved the capital to Moscow, just in case. Things really weren't going well for Lenin, and many people were extremely unhappy with the Bolshevik government and its actions. Lenin, you've pissed off so many people that they've united against you. We're under attack. Relax, we always expected some counter-revolutionary pushback. I think we can handle a few angry monopoly men. But Lenin, it's not just the monopoly men. Okay, who are we up against? Well, the liberals, the social revolutionaries, national separatists in Poland, Finland, and the Ukraine, independent warlords setting up chiefdoms, anarchist rebels, the Green Peasant armies, the Cossacks, the Caucasian states, the Baltic
Jeez, bro. The Russian Civil War is mad. I reacted to Kolchak, Admiral Kolchak. Was it Admiral Kolchak? Yeah, Admiral Kolchak. I reacted to Admiral Kolchak. Freaking, that was something else.
States, the British, the French, the Americans, and the Japanese, and a legion of Czechoslovakian soldiers seem to have taken over the Trans-Siberian Railway and stolen all the imperial gold reserves. What? How could this get any worse? Oh, and it says here your mother-in-law is coming to stay. No! A variety of anti-Bolshevik forces.
What's so wrong with his mother-in-law? What?
Had united together to topple Lenin's government, and Russia descended into a full-blown civil war. Now, the Russian Civil War was extremely intricate and would really need its own video, but essentially, the anti-Bolshevik white movement gained control of vast, underdeveloped areas, while the Bolshevik Reds controlled the industrial heartland, using this to their advantage, along with a surprising military.
Wait, he didn't put Petrograd in Bolshevik. The Bolsheviks had Petrograd. I guess that was a mistake from him.
Genius of Trotsky and the shocking disorganization of the White Army. The fortified Red Army.
Very shocking. Guys, it blows my mind how the White Army was so disorganized. Honestly, the White Army was kind of bound to lose the Russian Civil War.
Came out on top. It was an absolutely brutal conflict, with both sides committing horrendous atrocities. To maintain order at home, the Bolsheviks began the Red Terror, and the secret police would execute tens of thousands of suspected traitors. No one was safe from the violence, not even Nicholas himself. You've probably been wondering what Nicholas has been up to this whole time. Well, after his abdication, he and his family were placed under house arrest. At first, they were allowed to live in their usual luxury, but after Lenin took over, their conditions worsened. The Bolsheviks were just holding on to Nick until they could work out what to do with him, but the Civil War complicated things. The last thing they wanted was for Nick to be freed by the White Armies, and so, to stop this from happening, Nicholas's Bolshevik guards decided to act. It's not entirely certain whether Lenin ordered it, or if the guards were acting on their own volition. But on July 17th, 1918, with White Armies approaching, they woke Nicholas and his family in the middle of the night and brought them into the basement. There, a drunken squad of Bolsheviks murdered the entire family.
Dude, it's so sad what happened to them. Dude, I watched the execution of Tsar Nicholas II in details and like what they did. Oh my gosh, dude, oh my gosh, dude. Like, dude, no one deserves. Well, some people maybe, but like he didn't deserve that, dude. Like, especially like his family, you know, like this is actually heartbreaking. Like sometimes, you know, I was wondering like, what if Britain? Because there was an option for him to go to Britain because, freaking out because you know him and the British royal family are related. Which is very interesting when you think about it. And that would mean that the Romanov family would have, to an extent, a claim on the Barbadian throne, even though we're a republic, because when a country becomes a republic, you can still claim the throne. So, that's very interesting. So you can basically think of Russian people and like the Commonwealth realms kind of sort of as one big imperial family in sorts. But it's just sad to me that he wasn't able to reach Britain, dude, and just live off in exile there. It was just impossible for him, and honestly, this fate was just so freaking awful.
The last Tsar, once one of the most powerful men alive, had met a brutal end. But after years of fighting and millions of deaths, Trotsky and his Red Army came out victorious. Wow, that was a close one. Okay, back to creating a communist utopia. How are we doing on that? Well, the Civil War helped create a massive famine and about 5 million people starved to death. There's massive inflation and the ruble is worthless. Hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of railway track have been destroyed. Disease and epidemics have killed 3 million. The population of Moscow and Petrograd has collapsed. Life expectancy has plummeted. Sailors in Kronstadt are rebelling. People are freezing to death in their own apartments and life has been reduced to a constant search for food and shelter. Whoa. Well, this just means I'll have to work twice as hard, day and night, to save the country. Nothing will stop me, short of a couple sudden strokes. Get the doctor. One thing you have to keep in mind is that everything I've been talking about, the Civil War, the
doctor
attempt, and Lenin's struggle to maintain control at home, were all happening around the same time, and it must have been extremely stressful. Lenin began getting headaches, insomnia, and in 1922, he suffered 2 separate strokes. As the Soviet Union was officially declared under a strict one-party system, Lenin's health continued to decline, and his ability to lead the Communist Party went with it. Everybody assumed Trotsky would succeed him. He was a great speaker, he'd won the Civil War, and he had a dope-ass train. The last person anyone expected
He did? Oh, I want to see that train. How have I never heard of this?
was Stalin. Stalin wasn't a great intellectual like Lenin, or a charismatic war hero like Trotsky. He was, as one Menshevik described him, a gray blur. Someone who operated in the background. Someone who you might not even notice. But it was in the background that Stalin would rise to power. Here's how it happened. After the revolution, all the Bolsheviks hoped to get a cool job in the new government. What did you get? Commissar for War. Sweet! What'd you get? Secretary. Stalin was made general secretary for the Communist Party. It wasn't what he wanted, but Stalin quickly realized that even though it wasn't fancy, it was a powerful position. As secretary, he had the power to give people jobs within the party. So he would give jobs to all of his pals, who in turn would give him their support. The more pals he gave jobs, the more power he got.
It's the most OP position that one could ever ask for. It doesn't sound dope, but it is the most dope position one could ask for.
The more pals he got. Lenin may have been having wall-to-wall strokes, but he was still involved in the party, and he was taking notice. He wasn't a fan of Stalin abusing his position, or insulting his wife to her face. Lenin knew he couldn't let Stalin take over, but by this stage, he was just too sick to fight it. Hey man, tell whoever's in charge of giving people jobs not to let that jerk Stalin become the next leader. By the way, who did I put in charge of giving people jobs? That would be Stalin, sir. Whoa. Deja vu. Lenin's last wish was to not let Stalin take over, but by the time he died, Stalin was too powerful to remove. He had his remaining opponents arrested or killed. Trotsky was banished and fled to Europe. Eventually, he would be assassinated by Soviet spies in 1940. Our dear comrade Lenin has died. We should have a state funeral. No. Let's mummify him and put him on display so people can look at his dead body forever. That's gross.
Oh my gosh.
Guards? Kill him. Lenin had waited so long to take control in Russia, but he never got to see his communist utopia. His short time in charge was spent dealing with the destroyed Russian economy.
Oh my gosh.
World War I and the Civil War. He was cruel and merciless, but he really did seem to believe communism would make Russia a better place. Stalin, on the other hand, would take the Soviet Union.
That's what I was saying earlier. In my personal opinion, he thought that him becoming a dictator would be best, you know? Like, he thought that it's just one of those situations where, you know, I gotta take it in my own hands, you know, type of ordeal. So, yeah, he probably did thought that, freaking communism, you know, would be a good thing for Russia. It would be best for Russia, you know? And I kind of respect Lenin for that. Granted, the way how he was doing it was wrong. I kind of respect Lenin. I have to respect Lenin. Stalin, I don't respect Stalin.
Down a different path. If you thought Lenin was a tyrant, well, you ain't seen nothing yet, girl. A secret police state, a rapidly militarizing superpower led by a paranoid man who deeply distrusted the West, would see the world come to the brink of nuclear annihilation. That's right, I'm talking about
the Cold War.
Remember to click the link in the description below.
Oh, I'm poor, guys. I'm poor. I can't even look at the sponsors. Guys, thank you for watching the video. I have a lot going on with me right now. With my crisis right now. Check out my Patreon. Link is in the description below. If you want to support me for as little as $1. If you can't donate to my Patreon, at least make sure to like the video, guys. It's harmless, it doesn't do anything, and it really helps my channel. It makes the algorithm promote my channel, guys. So thank you, you made it this far. You know, leave me some love. You know, if you have any suggestions, tell me in the comments, guys. I'm tired. If you have any suggestions, leave it to me in the comments below and I will get to them. I will react to your suggestions. And if you're new, check out my other historical reactions. Thank you for watching and goodbye.